call him.
Hi, Rochelle. You're live on the Kitchen Bro. Hey, where are you going? The podcast just started.
No, it doesn't.
Rock and roll. Kitchen Bros, episode 11. Today we have Paul French of the Legion of Substitute Podcasters. Hit the music. So here we are again. I'm Mike Kitchen.
I'm Blair Kitchen, and we have...
I'm Paul French.
Alright.
And today I am Kitchen Bro Lad.
Kitchen Bro.
Gotta
You have your tight underwear on underneath there?
Possum on one side, Spy Guy on the other, baby.
Nice. Actually, don't you have Spy Guy Speedos, Mike, or something for sale?
Yeah, you can get those on Spreadshirt.
If you really,
Well, they're like a woman's panty thong kind of thing. Hey, it was there. Might as well put it up.
Women's. I'm not supposed to wear those?
Wait, what?
Am I red?
There was no such warning on the website.
Yeah.
So are we supposed to come up with our names too, Paul?
Absolutely. Nothing like me putting
Kitchen
you on
Bro
the spot.
Too. I'm Kitchen Bro too.
I'm the Midnight Podcaster of Doom.
Nice.
We'll go back. We're gonna go back to Channel 98 days. Bob and Blair. That's an inside joke. Only Mike will get.
Yeah, don't say that because then we got to put screenshots on to overlay.
In our short shorts, or in our 80s short shorts.
That's just more posts to do.
Yeah. Back when we were young, our I guess probably mostly to get us out of their hair. My grandpa gave us his video camera, and we did Channel 98 videos. Wish we had iMovie and YouTube back then.
No, seriously.
Yeah,
Thank God we didn't.
Well, YouTube, baby. iMovie would have been great, but we try and edit them with two VCRs hooked up, and you're like,
yeah,
pause, record. It's
almost like how we run this podcast.
At least you were trying to edit them. I can remember like at 8 or 9 years old talking with a friend of mine. And we were like, yeah, we want to make a movie, and here's what it's going to be, and here's this, and it was just one of those things where it's like, we will never be able to make this because just the means of production was not in our favor, And I think if we'd had the things we have now, look out.
Oh yeah, you could finish it.
Yeah,
for sure. We had like tapes, different videotapes full of like just stuff that we were going to edit together into like this James Bond movie. And, all this stuff. We had some pretty good stuff going on there. But
nice.
Yeah, what happened, Blair?
It's in the lost archives somewhere. Probably have tapes of them somewhere down.
So, Paul, before we go on, how about you give us a quick introduction? Go over some of the podcasts. Like I know we first. The first interview I ever did was with you back in the Poptopia days.
That's right. So I used to do the Poptopia podcast, and that was just basically, I did that for several years, actually. I started that in November of 2004, I want to say. So either November 2004, November 2005. I'm thinking actually...
It was 2000... It was 2006 when we were interviewed because that was our first.
That was fan
expo.
That's right. So yeah, and I was good. I was a good 70 odd episodes in by that point. So
wow.
So yeah. So anyway, so I did that for a while, and that was it started out actually as a 2-person podcast where we kind of talked about all kinds of pop culture stuff, and then I stopped doing it for a little while and came back to it, and I did it as a 15-minute, here's a few bullet point kind of things of what's going on in pop culture. And I kept that going until a couple of years ago, and then it just came down to time, and you know how it is, it's just finding the time to sit down and record was tough enough. Finding the time to actually do the what little production work remained, because I like to do a podcast pretty much like a live radio show. And so when we do much like you guys do with the theme, when we do Legion of Substitute Podcasters, like we do the intro and I press a button to get the theme going, because I don't want to have to edit after, because we often do like a 2-hour episode, and we record on Sunday night and we release the episode on Monday morning. There is no time for editing, nor is there any inclination for editing. And so I did Poptopia for a couple of years, and then one day, one of the guys on the comic forums mentioned Darren, who's one of my co-hosts on the show, had given some information about the Legion to someone who was confused about a couple of characters, and so one of our other co-hosts, Matt, said, Darren should do a Legion podcast, and I thought, I can either, it's like, he's right. He totally should. And I can either listen to that Legion podcast or I can be a part of it. So I got in touch with both of them and said, I think that's a great idea and I think we should do it. And so that's what we did. And, so we started that in October of 2009. And we have not missed a week. We have 192 episodes as of this past week, and so we're headed to episode 200 by the first week of August, and it's been a great deal of fun. We actually started off with a couple of different people, and then we and Scott Coles, who you guys both know. He had been listening to the show, and we had him on a couple of times, and then he was just kind of like, Sunday nights I'm usually kind of bored, so if you guys ever need an extra voice, just let me know. And so we started doing that. It's like, Scott's available. Let's have him on. And then one day a couple of years ago, we were just like, let's just make him a co-host. And we did up his whole little induction. We did up the little scroll of induction into the Legion. And it's the only time we've had to do that, and possibly the only time that we will. But it was fun to do anyway. And
Scott's a guy who belongs on a video podcast.
Oh, absolutely. 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 I've actually made a couple of short films with him. I think we've
I've seen those. You've posted those.
We've done a couple of them. I missed those. I will send you guys a link.
Yeah.
And
yes, indeed.
And so I always end up dying horribly in them. I don't know how does that happen.
Are there monkeys involved?
There should be. So we've been doing that.
Actually, in the possum number 2, I think it is, I used a sketch that I did for Scott at one of the conventions as like the letters page thing with the monkey riding a tricycle.
Yes, that's right.
In his monkey sketchbook.
So what made you get into doing the whole podcasting thing? Like, what was your motivation for that? Was it just something to do, just like a goof, or was there a bigger plan involved?
Plan might be far too strong a word. Honestly, part of it was
don't give him that.
I'm very much, I'm very interested in the technology of it, and so when I first heard about podcasting like I said, I believe it was at the end of 2004, and this was. Someone had posted an article about it, and at the time there wasn't a whole lot going on. It was like there was Adam Curry doing his daily source code, and so I was listening to that very early on, like before he was at even sort of 40 episodes. And so I was listening to that. I was listening to Coverville, which is a great cover song podcast, and so I was listening to a few of these things. I thought, I can do this. And so and I started on the pop culture thing, and I remember the very first episode, I had gone to see Kevin Smith do a Q&A at Roy Thompson Hall the day before, and so I did a review of that, and I remember I had a little rant about CSI and just sort of the overdoing it, because when the first CSI came on, there was no bigger fan than me. By the time we got to CSI New York, I was like, enough. Not only had it and not only had it poisoned the well for the new show, but it had also just like there was just a poison in the well that leaked all the way back to the original. I just couldn't watch any of them anymore. And the same thing had happened earlier that year for me with or a couple of years earlier, I guess, with Law and Order. Again, like I could watch an episode of Law and Order over and over again. I would.
Yeah, I was always a Law and Order guy. I was never a CSI guy, but Law and Order, I was completely hooked on that. But I know what you mean. As soon as it started getting bloated to 5 or 6 different shows, and there's a newsroom, or what was it? There's one that popped up that lasted, I don't think, not even a season.
That was Trial and
Lilith from Cheers.
Yes, Trial and Consequences.
That's the one.
And I think that was right around when Jerry Orbach died, and I think he was supposed to be the.
That's right.
He was leaving the mothership to go to that one, and that. Yeah. And again, like I can remember. I can remember like 10 years ago, I had customers that I was dealing with out in London and Windsor. And we used to joke about how it's like, all right, we got to wrap this meeting up by 3 o'clock because I got to be back in Brampton in time for 7 to watch Law and Order. And so this was always sort of the running joke. And in fact, my buyer at Windsor still jokes with me about it. And I'm just like, yeah, I haven't watched that stuff in ages. That was like the old A&E reruns, right? Where you could watch it at 7 and then you could watch it again at 11.
Yeah. One of the highlights of my comic making was, I don't know if you remember Spy Guy Minis. There was a strip that had Ice-T in it.
Yeah.
Law and Order. I posted that to him, and so he ended up retweeting it on Twitter. So I was thinking, man, that is pretty awesome. That's
nice.
Ice-T got to read my Spy Guy strip and liked it enough to send it back out there. That was pretty cool.
That's awesome, and I sometimes think that might have been part of the slow decline of Law and Order for me. It's like, so wait a second, the guy who sang Cop Killer now plays a cop on TV.
Oh, I love that.
It's a delicious irony. There's no doubt about it.
If that was a plan all along, then that's great.
Yeah.
So while we're doing pop culture critiques, what do you think of? I always want to talk to you about this. The whole DC New 52, and after that, what do you think of the new Watchmen stuff?
Well, I have
any opinions on all that.
Well, okay. So the New 52 stuff. Much like anything else, some of it's great, some of it's garbage, some of it's
ones do you think are great?
Okay.
Like, what are the standout ones for you?
I'm really loving. I really loved Olmec, and was sorry to see that go because that was just a ton of fun. I'm really enjoying Scott Snyder's Batman. I like what Gail Simone's doing on Batgirl. I'm trying to think of sort of the top of the stack ones. Francis Manapul on Flash is fantastic.
That's one that actually blew me away. Like, I didn't buy it for myself, but I brought my son to the comic store. He wanted to buy a new comic. It's like, okay, let me buy you this one, because this is the one I actually want to read for myself. So we'll get you that. So he wanted that one, and he wanted Batman. So those were the two comics from the New 52 that I bought.
Yeah, and I mean, you can't go wrong, right? I mean, Capullo is absolutely killing it on Batman, and I think Snyder's doing some great work too. And Francis and Brian on Flash, it's a thing of beauty. Like it's one of those things where it's someone who you can see that they really just get how words and visuals can go together to tell a story.
And for me, it has some of that same magic that guys like Dan Slott or Eric Larson and those guys, where it's a comic book that feels like a comic book.
Yeah.
And they're actually bringing interesting ideas into it rather than just phoning it in. Where a lot of the comics I get that feeling from.
Yeah, and I'd say those are kind of the standouts for me. I fell off I found that, for example, on the other side of things, I found Hawkman to be probably the worst of the bunch. I couldn't tell you, I think I read that, I tried reading that first issue a couple of times, and I don't know if I could have told you at the end of it what happened. And so I tried the second issue, and I thought, okay, I'm done with this. It's the only book where I think that adding Rob Liefeld as writer actually was a step up in quality. And because at least he's having fun with it, I suppose.
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't checked it out.
I have to confess, I haven't read any of the New 52 stuff. I haven't. I flipped through them, but I mean, the art on Wonder Woman kind of caught my eye, and the Flash stuff caught my eye a lot. But I read a little bit of the. What was the? Oh shoot! Which one was it? Justice League, I think.
Yeah.
And where
Is that the Jim Lee
there's some
one?
with. I'm not sure. There was something with Green Lantern and a bus. Didn't he make a bus
that's the Jim Lee one where like
Is that the one?
crashed a guy with a green fire truck or something like that.
Oh, fire
Yes,
truck.
that's right.
I saw the fire truck.
And that was
and
part of the first preview. It was like a
can't.
5-page preview and the first introduction to the new Green Lantern, and he's making a green fire truck. It's like, really? Is that the best you can do?
I was just kind of like, nah, I don't think I could do it. I don't know. But some of that, like, I really thought, I don't know who the artist is on Wonder Woman, but that always caught my eye, the first few issues.
Now, the thing that bothered me about Wonder Woman, and
Chang.
one of the things that sort of, I guess, filtered my view on the whole thing is because they're going through this drastic change. And so I was thinking, they have so many different properties that they can do so many different things with, that this really could be a good jumping on point for, like, say my kids, who they want to read comic books, and they love going to the comic store with me. And great introduction. And my girls, they love Wonder Woman. But then the Wonder Woman comic ended up being kind of this dark horror kind of looking thing. Like, it's not the kind of thing you give to a 12-year-old girl or a 10-year-old girl. And
part of the problem there is that, I know, like, I'm the same way. I think, I started reading comics as a kid, and I think, hey, we want kids to read comics, right?
Yeah.
The thing is, they don't. And you look at the comics that they are making for kids, and top of the pile, just looking at last month, and I happen to have these numbers handy. So top of the kid targeted stuff was Art, and quite rightly so, is Art and Franco's Superman Family Adventures #1.
Okay.
And it sold 13,000 units. Wonder Woman last month sold 48,000 units.
Yeah, really.
But okay, what did
is that
do you have the
because-
numbers for Flash? Because out of all the comics, that's the one my son picked out. So that's
Flash
that's like what an 8-year-old boy would like.
Yeah, 62,000, almost 63,000.
Okay,
So that's
That's for May.
because when I was young, I loved Neil Adams' Batman. My uncle had a bunch of old comics. And, you can't say those are really for kids. It's one of the more darker versions of Batman. But they're still kid-friendly. And when you're a child, you want to reach for things that are a little bit beyond you. And so I have no problem with that kind of attitude. But when you have Starfire, the way they handled her, I was just like, oh, I can't give that to my daughters. And that's their favorite character in the universe.
And that's the thing is I can and I remember reading New Teen Titans at 10 years old.
Okay.
It came out in 1980, so I was 10 when that series started, and I mean, certainly she wasn't sexualized certainly not to the degree that she is now. But they were doing what they could get away with within the confines of the Comics Code.
Yeah.
And maybe that's not such a bad thing. They talked a lot about how the Hays Code for movies, right, which is probably the best analog for what the Comics Code was. How it forced them to be a little bit more inventive with the way they would put things.
Yeah.
And I think of like when a few years ago, Steven Soderbergh tried to make an old style movie, right? He even went out and got like old cameras and old microphones and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And he's like, I want to make it just like the way they made a movie when Casablanca came out. And so that's what they did. And it looks very much like that, But the thing is, they didn't write a script like that. So they wrote a script where it was all pretty on the nose. And the thing was, the Hays Code, you couldn't get away with any kind of innuendo. You had to find a creative way around it. And I think that's part of what's been lost, is that Denny O'Neil found a way to tell a story of horror and murder without you having to, where you didn't have to see someone go in and tear someone's head off.
Right.
And there's a big difference.
Do you know what movie that was offhand?
Yeah, The Good German.
Okay. I'll have to look into
and it looks great, but it's a noble experiment, but it's one of those things, and it's one of the things I love about Soderbergh is because he's willing to, like you say, to reach a bit beyond, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes he falls short. When he hits it, it's fantastic. When he falls short, it's like, so close, because it was such a neat idea, and it has a beautiful look to it. But it's one of those things where you don't believe the illusion because of the way because it's written like a modern movie, and it's like, if you were going to go for it, why not go for it? You were putting it out in black and white. You had already limited your audience a great deal.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, why not go whole hog and have people who are into that kind of thing, of which there are many, fully embrace it, but it made it hard to embrace it because it was just a typical of these days kind of script.
Well, it's interesting, like even you, the way you described that, I'm finding myself going through the same thing with the Spy Guy comics. Whereas Minis was one where I decided to kind of experiment and kind of push boundaries in different directions and see how far. But looking back on it, like that's the one comic I don't feel as comfortable giving to children. There's things that take a step beyond, whether it's language or, I don't know, just more mature themes. Whereas now I'm trying to do that same kind of thing. It's like, okay, like pull the violence back a little bit, pull the language back, and try and get more creative with things, where you write down a curse word. It's like, is there a better way I can say that? Or is there some other thing I can do? And try and make it so, when a 10-year-old comes up at the convention and wants a comic, I feel comfortable giving him that. Where with Minis, I don't. I always tell the children, maybe not this one.
And going back to the Wonder Woman thing is, there's a way that could be done, because the art, you're right, is great. That's Cliff Chang, he's the artist on that, and he did what is it? I'm looking at over here, Neil Young's Greendale a couple of years ago, and beautiful stuff. He's a really great artist, and I just found that some of it, I agree with you that a lot of the violence in it was gratuitous, and I honestly don't think that that's what's selling the book.
Yeah, especially not for a Wonder Woman. Like other characters, I could see that.
And the interesting thing is,
like a Rorschach. Is that how you say it? I always mess up his name.
Rorschach.
Rorschach.
But what is it?
Okay.
What was it like?
What if his comics? Yeah, throw in the violence. Sure.
and I find her book is actually reading kind of like a '90s Vertigo book. Where
it is. It's very much like that.
Yeah, where it's not as over the top as Vertigo would become later on. But there's always that undercurrent. But it's just kind of like this sort of the traveling group of characters. It reminded me very much of like, Peter Milligan's Shade or some aspects of Sandman. And where a lot of that was it was mature themed, but not necessarily, again, the rip your head off kind of thing. But that would rear its head every now and then. And
I don't mind the violence as long as it serves a place in the like the overall story, right? Like, they talk about like Watchmen or whatever. There's some pretty gruesome stuff in the Watchmen, but like Alan Moore's, right? But it serves a purpose with the story, and it fits in, and it's
certain characters it works. Like if you have violence in a Wolverine comic, well, his powers are big, sharp, pointy claws. Like you can go a little farther with that.
But you still don't have to get the gore. Like there's something that is okay for the kids to read and see, but then there's other stuff.
Ultimately, for me, it's like, what are you going for? What are you trying to do?
Yeah.
If you're trying to attract fans of the Teen Titans cartoon, then Red Hood and the Outlaws is the wrong way to go.
And I don't think that they were, because...
Well, obviously they weren't, because
Yeah.
it was the farthest thing from that. But the thing is, that's what my kids wanted. My daughters were saying, I want a Starfire comic. I want a Raven comic.
Yeah.
Sorry, you can't have it.
And here's the thing. They did a comic that was based on the Teen Titans series, and it regularly sold somewhere around 6,000 copies a month.
But the thing was, they were doing that kiddie version of it. No,
I was going to get into that. I don't like
they weren't targeting
the kiddie comics.
No,
like 14-year-olds.
I'm talking before Tiny Titans. I'm talking about
I know it's the Go Titans or Teen Titans Go.
Yeah, and I mean, even now you look at Young Justice.
Yeah.
Right, and that is targeted there, and it's doing the same kind of thing around 12,000 copies.
I think their problem is they're targeting young kids on purpose,
rather than targeting,
when
say,
you
14-year-olds or 15-years or 16-years.
Yeah.
Because that's what the 10-year-olds want. 10-year-olds don't want comics aimed at 10-year-olds. They want it aimed at 15-year-olds.
Yeah. No, that's true.
And the thing is, whenever they're playing down to the kids rather than just keeping it, doing something that an adult would like, but at the same time keeping it that kids.
And actually, when my kids were asking for the Teen Titans stuff, I ended up going back and getting the George Perez stuff from the 80s.
Yeah.
And I had never read those before. So I bought a bunch of those at the comic convention and brought them home, and I actually read through them. It's like, these are fantastic.
Oh, it's great.
No wonder the cartoon works so well, because you can see them pulling all the stuff from that.
Yeah.
And of course, my kids were like, why do they look weird? It's like, okay, well, don't worry about that. Just read it. These are actually pretty good.
Why don't they have bigger feet? Yeah.
Did they keep the costumes the same? I'm not. Don't follow the Teen Titans.
No,
did they keep the costumes the same, or
no.
they changed?
I mean, it's like Robin. You know what Robin's supposed to look like, and you know what he looks like in Teen Titans. Like, they all will go through that kind of a redesign.
Yeah, so they have quite a bit of a reboot.
Yeah, and it was sort of anime styled in the cartoon as well. So I mean, you had, like I say, the bigger feet, and so Cyborg looked a little bit different, and Beast Boy actually looked almost the same, except they kept him sort of more an animal feel to him, kind of thing. And
I've seen the cartoon a bit, but the comics I haven't read the Perez stuff or any of that. So maybe I'm gonna put that on.
It's great stuff. It's one of those things when you look at it. What they were doing at the time was the guys from Marvel coming over to DC and saying, "Hey, look what we can do with your characters." It doesn't have to be the goofy Bob Haney stuff on Teen Titans anymore. We can actually tell some more advanced stories, and here's a couple of guys who used to do a whole lot of Avengers work to do it, and and they killed with it. It's why it was their number one book.
Yeah,
and I think you're right. I think that a lot of what they had been doing before that was, like you say, targeting 10-year-olds, and now they were targeting 15 or 16-year-olds, and the 10-year-olds were like, "This is awesome."
Exactly.
So I think there is a lot of that, and there's a lot of things that probably at 10 I didn't quite get. I didn't quite get what was going on with Robin and Starfire at the time, and then it was like, oh, of course.
But see, that's good writing, though. That's
the best
good,
writing,
right?
when you can pull it off like that.
Yeah,
which kind of goes back to what you were saying, where you have to get creative with it.
Yeah. The comics code would not let them get away with some of that stuff, and it's funny because when they went into their Baxter run, when they went direct only. Then they did they had in the first issue, they had the bit where the alarm goes off in Titan's Tower, and you see that Dick and Starfire are in bed together, and it was like, see, they were more on the nose there, because they're like, we can get away with it now.
Yeah.
and it seemed, and it's funny because it seemed. I mean, looking back on it now, 20 odd years later, it seems kind of quaint. But at the time, it was like that was a big deal. Like they got letters.
Yeah. Actually, Dan Slott did a thing with Spider-Man that I thought was pretty good, and this was funny because this was right around the same time all the drama with Catwoman and all this stuff was going on, and with Batman and Catwoman on the roof getting it on and all this kind of stuff. But then in the Spider-Man comic, he was like Mary. This was when everyone was turning into spiders, and he said to Mary Jane, "It's like, oh well, you may be more immune to this because we," and you kind of stopped or whatever, and then it's like, what? Shared a toothbrush? Yeah,
that's it. Well, and that's it.
See, and that's what you gotta. Kids will laugh at that. They'll be like, "Ew, shared a toothbrush."
Yeah.
And the adults know exactly what they're talking about.
And when you think the Catwoman thing's a great example. There in that first issue, it was like, they're really, it's a little on the nose, if you'll pardon the expression. I'm sure at some point it was. But if you read the first issue of Grant Morrison's Batman Incorporated, it was implied but never said. Because the way he looked at it was, it doesn't need to be said because it's implied. And with that being implicit, it's like, why do I need to sort of here it is, you see, do you get it now? Instead he made it clear that that's what was going on with them without having to do so, and it was really interesting the way he went about it. In a way that that there was nothing stopping him from doing that. He was just kind of like, I don't need to go that route.
Yeah. And for Batman, I think that's the right decision.
Yeah.
And if you look at someone and say, what's his name, Milo Manara?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, that's a genre, that's a style. He does it well.
Yeah.
Go for it. Go all out. That'll serve its audience, and that's all fine. But in Batman, really?
Well, that's a hard thing about doing your own comics, too, though, is that you do have to... I mean, that's the toughest job, is to self-censor yourself and to play that role of, Because limits are good. I just don't want other people telling me what my limits should be. So you really do have to.
It's about knowing what you want to create, like having a clear vision. Yeah. And when you decide, it's like, I'm going to have some naked midgets in this comic. Sure, you can do it, but realize what you're doing.
Yeah. But so how? How does that go for you doing that self-editing process? Because you look at. Actually, Marv Wolfman's a great example of that, because for quite a while he was Len Wein was his editor on New Titans originally, but then he became his own editor, and that actually gave him that he ended up running into some trouble with that. And they talk about when Cary Bates was editing himself on The Flash, when he was doing the trial of Flash, this storyline that was supposed to be sort of a short arc and went on for literally years. And so how do you approach it from that? How do you approach your books editorially? Or is that part of it?
Yeah, I mean, for me, a lot, like the whole censorship thing, I always think, okay, I have kids. What would I be comfortable with letting my kids read? So, and I also think back to, okay, what did I read at that age? Yeah. And what was my opinion of it, and what kind of, like, a lot of the stuff I didn't get. I mean, I remember watching Top Secret, and the movie Top Secret with Val Kilmer, and we had a sleepover with my friend, and my mom was watching it too, and she's like, I don't think you guys should be watching this movie. And we were, I don't know how old we were, 8 or something like that, and we didn't get any of the sexual innuendos at all. Like, it just didn't even... we thought it was funny that she's riding a motorcycle, and when they stop, her hair's still blowing. The big telephone in the foreground in that, right?
So I remember the ballet sequence. We were laughing. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, was it? Yeah, that's right. Stepping on the boners. Yeah. And
which one was the ballet scene? What did they do with that? I remember a ballet scene.
Dancers with very tight pants and very erect crotches.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and
the ballerinas were like
exactly. They were using them as
from one
steps.
to the other. But see, like something like that to me as a kid, you just find that
Oh,
fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you barely even know what they're used for, right? They're like I'm talking.
Oh.
You don't
Wait,
know what they're.
you-
you barely.
Do you
like,
mean
to
very
you,
big,
it's just
very
something
big
you
phones?
like to little kids. Yeah. No, but I remember like that. You just think, oh, that's funny. It's it's just something funny. But you don't even that. You don't get the sexual.
No.
Ness of it. You just as a kid, you're just laughing because that and farts are funny.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all you know.
Yeah, for me with the
as a kid.
self-censorship thing is I'm just ultimately just trying to create a comic that I would like to read.
Yeah.
And so part of it is looking at other people that are creating the comic that I want and seeing what's in it and seeing the ones where I think it's gone too far or it's gone overboard or, and trying to just figure out what levels I'm trying to hit. So say with Spy Guy.
Yeah.
And I was talking with Blair about this, like in issue number 4 or 5, there's going to be some pretty big gun battles.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, okay, well, I know I want to hit this kind of level of violence, but it is a black and white comic.
Yeah.
So it's, mostly just kind of black smears. It's not like it's too gratuitous in that sense. And then it's just a matter of trying to keep just that right level of cartoon violence with enough, flesh explosions to, make it exciting in an anime sort of way. So and then as far as storylines and all that kind of stuff is just trying to reel it back into something that would interest me.
Yeah.
So, like I don't want to write a story as long as say like Melmoth or something from Cerebus.
Yeah.
Where it's, 20 issues of just people talking. Like, okay, that's not what I'm going for. I like the stuff that's a little more snappy where you get a full story done in 20 pages. Or at least that chunk of story is self-contained within that space. So that's kind of stuff I look at.
And I'm going for that too, but it's not because of the Melmoth way is wrong. It's just because Right,
it's just deciding what it is you want to do. That's just kind of what
I want. I think that's what, to me, mine is a bit more geared towards kids, so that kind of attention span, I think, works better for kids, right? I tried the 3-issue storyline for the issues 2, 3, and 4, and to me that was a bit long. Like, it just didn't, that was kind of an experiment to see what it would be like. But because at first I thought, I can get in there and tell the story, but I think the limitations of trying to cram a story into 24 pages is a good thing. So that's what I'm kind of gearing towards now, more just single issues, more like the Spider-Man model where you have the soap opera that goes on forever, and then and then maybe a big storyline that goes on forever, but then each comic has the one main storyline. And I think it's a good discipline to try and get into.
I wish more people would, because you're right. It does get to a point where you're just kind of like, 24 pages. It should be satisfying in and of itself. Yeah. And I get that some stuff it's like, okay, it's part of a bigger story, and but I guess I'm just to a point where I'm starting to get kind of tired of that. Where
I don't know if you follow Dan Slott on Twitter though. This week he basically sent out this exact same thing. I should do a screen cap and put it on screen, but where he was essentially saying what you just said right there.
Yeah,
although he had I bought a one of the earlier Spider-Man ones. It was about the Sinister Six, and Spider-Man wasn't in it, and I'm like, man, I got ripped off. That was a boring one. That was before the whole end of the Earth.
And I haven't read a whole lot of I've only read a bit of Slott Spider-Man. I've read Big Time, and that was fantastic. I had kind of dropped, I'd kind of dropped off at that point where it was, they had just done the One Moment in Time thing, and I took that as this is a good jumping off point for me, and so I had jumped off it, and then they're like, so Slott's writing all of them, and most of the issues that he had written in that couple of years where they were doing the thrice monthly were generally my favorites. And I always thought, even back when he was doing his Thing series, I always thought, if there is anyone who should be writing Spider-Man, it's Dan Slott. I mean, he is the perfect writer for that title. And so I thought, well, money where your mouth is. This is what you've been wanting. Check it out. And so I did check out Big Time, and it's one of those things where I've decided, I will continue to follow his Spider-Man in trade. And I'm a little bit behind now, obviously, but I will certainly be able to catch up, and I know it'll be something that I'll enjoy, because I think there's a certain joy he has in writing that character.
Oh, for sure. It's fun and it's real snappy. And I like that he's not afraid to throw new ideas into it.
Yeah.
There's sometimes I think maybe with the new the new costumes and the new technologies, they may go a little bit too far on that. Like the last storyline I thought was fantastic, but it's like, oh, he's wearing another costume. And I wouldn't mind it so much, but I just love the Ditko costume too much. It's like, it's kind of neat and story-wise it works, but I want Spider-Man, like, Ditko's the best. You can't change it.
But that's the crux.
Or at least give him the webs. Give him the armor, but just put the webs, do something.
Yeah, but
that's just my personal taste.
But that's the challenge, right? That is the challenge for someone, especially doing corporate comics. Is that it needs to be new, because people always want something new. But at the same time, it also needs to service the status quo, because it's like, what the hell do they do? What do you mean they're changing this? And it's like, what do you mean he doesn't work at the Daily?
I like my couch against that wall. What are you doing?
It's like, what do you mean he doesn't work for the Daily Bugle anymore? Are you insane?
But you know what? That's one thing that I thought Slott did brilliant, is that he changed everything up.
Yeah.
But like all the elements were there. So Peter had this nice fancy new job.
Oh yeah.
But he's still doing the science thing. He's still got like the guy on top of him that's the boss that he has to answer to.
Yeah.
And even though J. Jonah Jameson wasn't his boss anymore, now he's mayor of New York.
That's right.
So you still have that dynamic.
He's still the boss. That is good.
And Spider-Man is a menace. It still had that whole thing, but now he's got a task force. Now he can send the cops out. It's like, okay, so it has that same feel, but he's kind of cranked it up a notch, and the dynamics are all there. And he brought back some of the the old cast, and
that's
that was
really cool. And see, that's neat. So he has found a good way to do something new and maintain the status quo. Most people don't figure that out. And it's a real challenge for them to do so, because the status quo is something, especially with a character like Spider-Man, where that has been a long-standing thing. And every time they deviated too far from it, people started dropping off, and so they would move back to it again, and then they would move away from it. And I think he's done a really neat job. That, like, the idea of Peter working for a think tank, it's genius, right? I think that,
although they're a little too smart,
but it's fun. I mean, this is a world with Mr. Fantastic.
and
Tony Stark.
But you're right. They've maintained the key relationships. No, he is no longer the photographer for the Daily Bugle, but there is still that conflict for Peter and that conflict for Spider-Man with J. Jonah Jameson, and so there's still a lot of those dynamics going on, and I think that being able to match up those relationships, that's probably more key to it than anything else. See, the status quo is still kind of there. It's still got the same feel.
Yeah, and did you read the Venom issue that he did? I think it was one of those something .1 issues.
Oh no, I did. I didn't.
Is that Ramos?
Yeah, that was one
that the one he did?
I was 100% sure I was going to hate. It's like Flash Thompson is the new Venom, and he's a special agent in this military thing.
Spoiler alert!
What the hell is Marvel thinking? But then Dan Slott wrote it so well that, like, I liked it. I don't know how he won me over like that, but he managed to do it. Where he had, so while Flash Thompson is doing all the special mission stuff, he's still got like this football talk that he's kind of sliding into it. It's like, wow, this really sounds like a Flash Thompson, even though he's Venom and he's doing special ops for the government. Like, It is. I don't know how he pulled it off, but he did. I was blown away by that.
Yeah, and I mean, I've heard really good things about the Venom series that Rick Remender and Tony Moore were doing, and I haven't read any of it, you know, because I love those two guys. Like, I mean, I'm a big fan of their stuff on Fear Agent, but I haven't. I just you know I think part of it is just it's Venom. Venom, and you're right. It's like I know if I read it, I'll enjoy it. I know this, but it's that bringing myself to read Venom because I've just conditioned myself.
I didn't pick any of that series either. Like the one issue blew me away, but
no, I didn't either.
You know, I flipped through the other ones. It's like, oh, this one's not selling me the way that one issue did.
Yeah, well, there's a joy that Slott brings to his stuff that I think. And again, I'm a big fan of Remender and Remender and Tony Moore together. Oh, it's a thing of beauty. And you know, I mean, like I say, have you guys read Fear Agent?
No, I've read a couple issues because that's through Dark Horse, right?
Yeah.
There's one where he was like the old man. It looked like he was sitting on a bar and looked really depressed in his spacesuit. It was, I don't know, it must have been 6 months ago that one came out. And that caught my eye. Yeah. And it was one of those ones where I hadn't read the stuff that came before, but it put it on my radar.
Yeah.
So I was looking for special BMV discount bin type things where I could buy a huge stack of them and just really dig into it. And
I'm sure they will be there at some point. Because, and it's well worth reading. It's a really cool series, and they Tony Moore and Jerome Pena would trade off on art chores, arc by arc. And so you've always got some really cool art with it, and it's a really cool story. So I know I would enjoy it, but again, it's getting, for me, it was getting past the bias that I've built up in my mind about Venom, because Venom is everything that was wrong with comics in the 90s, and sort of steering back a little ways to some of the New 52 stuff. It was like, this is what I found, recently they did a big crossover with Legion Lost, so we covered it on our show with Legion Lost and the Teen Titans called The Culling, and it was terrible. It was it was one of those things where it's like, this is everything that was wrong with comics in the 90s. This is everything that drove me away from reading comics for several years in like 1997, and this should be the kind of stuff, rather than the kind of stuff that would bring me back to it. So that was an incredibly disappointing little run of things, and I think that's for better or worse, that's kind of the lot that they've thrown into, is that's the group they're chasing, and that's the group that as an industry they seem to be chasing. And so for guys like us, I think that we're going to kind of fall off on a lot of that stuff, and the good stuff will grab us, and a lot of the other stuff I think it's not necessarily a bad thing for independent comics, because this is where a lot of us end up following creators, and you see there's a lot of these guys who are starting to put out their image books, and that sort of thing, or going this the self-publishing route. And I mean, but then to the other side of it, like I read the stuff that Jeff Lemire's doing over there, and I love it. But in my mind, it's still, I like what he's doing in the DC universe. I would still much rather read, as much as I enjoyed what he did on Frankenstein, and I've been enjoying his Animal Man, I'm really looking forward to the Underwater Welder coming out. That's what I want to read from Lemire, or reading Sweet Tooth, and it's great that Matt Kint is working on Frankenstein, Agent of Shade now. But I'm probably enjoying his Mind Management series a lot more. It's one of those things where I look at this as, hey, this is great, because now everybody knows who Jeff Lemire is.
Yeah.
Everyone knows who
Yeah, hopefully
you
that
know,
works. Yeah.
and I hope that that's part of it is that it's like you see how awesome these guys are. They do other stuff too, and
Yeah.
and
It,
I really hope that that's the case. I'm not entirely sure that it is, but
I think that it is to a point, but I find the big problem is when people get those jobs, well, obviously their creator-owned work suffers because they don't have the time for it.
Well, yeah,
And so it's then when they stop it, then they've got to figure out a way to get all the audience that likes their work back onto their other thing.
yeah,
And they don't have that same kind of corporate machine, pimping their work out like with the corporate-owned comics.
and
So it's always this weird thing. Like, I mean, Mark Miller pulls it off. But,
yeah, and it's baffling at times, isn't it? Like, because when Kick-Ass first came out, like, okay, it had Ramita doing art too. I mean, so that doesn't hurt your case any,
that was a big
but
help,
I mean,
but Miller's also, he's the writer, so he can have multiple books out at the same time, and he started his own.
I'm sure that's
company,
easier than
right?
being an artist doing that.
Oh yeah,
is if you're an artist, you got one book, and that's what.
And that's one of the things that amazes me with Lemire, because he's got 2 DCU books that he's writing. Because he's writing. Well, at first he was writing Animal Man and Frankenstein, and now he's moved from Frankenstein. He's doing Justice League Dark now, and still putting out Sweet Tooth. And in there, he was also doing. He was also finishing off the Underwater Welder. So I saw he was at a signing at my comic shop back in, I don't know, September, October, somewhere around there. So I'm going to say like, oh, it was about 6 months ago. It was probably like, I'll probably then realize, oh, it was actually a year ago. No, it was after, because Frankenstein was already out. So it had to have been September at the very least. And, so he was working on that. Now he had Matt Kent fill in on art on a couple of issues of Sweet Tooth. And you can understand why, because I mean the guy, he had just finished writing Superboy, and then he got his assignment for the New 52 books, and so he was doing those and doing this creator-owned title over at Vertigo. And so he had Matt Kent fill in for a couple of issues, and it's like, if you can have a fill in, that's kind of cool, and so he did 2 issues, and but I'll tell you, the guy was tired, and
oh, you gotta be, you can't go on that forever.
That's it.
Oh, I'll go through little spurts like that where I'm just have multiple things going on, and eventually you burn out, and for me anyways, I do. I can do it. I can keep it up for about 6 months.
Yeah, well, comics is a real draining job.
Yeah.
And like Dave Sim put it best, how comic books are the great white shark of devouring time. And the only thing I think is maybe even bigger than that is, say, animation, which is what we do for our day jobs.
Yeah.
So it's like, we're just being, eaten away on both ends. So it's hard. Like,
I don't think Dave Sim has ever done classical animation. I don't think.
No, I mean, just seeing, it's very much that idea of figuring out, how do I get this across in this panel, and you must have some things. There must be some things where you're just like, I know exactly how I want this to look, and let's go. And then there's other things.
Yeah, that's not tiring at all. That's fun.
Those
when you know
are great.
Exactly what you want. It's when you run into a wall.
And then there's the ones where it's like, this seemed like a good idea when I was writing it down, when I was plotting it out and all this. Because like, do you guys write a script first, or
sort of?
I don't write a full script. I write a
so you kind of
script of the main beats that I want.
So do you kind of outline it and come up with dialogue as you go, or even after the fact?
Yeah. Page by page, I do the dialogue pretty much, and then I'll do a pass where I kind of go over it and kind of flesh things out. Like I'll keep kind of going over the dialogue. Like I'll do 4 pages, then I'll read it.
This is the kind of stuff. Like, this is the way my things end up looking. I have like pages that have like thumbnails on it,
Yeah.
and then scribble out. I'll put I always do a mock-up copy as well.
Oh, really?
Here's a page that has post-it notes and sticky things on.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a very organic process for me.
Yeah.
It always starts off on one of those like little sketchbooks. Lots of times I carry around a little,
Yeah.
like, just a little pocket sketchbook to jot down ideas. Then I normally take the 8.5 by 11 paper, fold it over so I have a tangible object in my hand, so I can write down ideas and kind of get the pacing for the comic and say, okay, can this fit in 20 pages? Or do I have to take things out? Some pages I'll just say, fight, fight, fight.
Yeah.
Goes to headquarters, see bad guys, and then I realize, I'm out of pages. Okay, well, let's rip out one of these fight pages, and we'll slide it over here. So that kind of gets the pacing of it.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I do normally do a script stage, and it's kind of loose, and it's just to try and get the dialogue bits written down.
Yeah.
So if there's a conversation in my head that I keep thinking about, then I'll put that down as a script. And normally it goes through a huge culling process. Once I start writing in word balloons, it's like, whoa, this is way too big.
This is something that I do.
Wait, hold up, guys. We just got a thing that says that the Skype has stopped recording. Let me see if I can get this back up.
Hey-o.
This is where doing the little video thing comes in handy.
Yeah, because I think I've got 3 minutes left on my tape.
So it stopped recording? Yep, and it's back up. So we should probably finish this off before the whole podcast self-destructs, as usual.
Yeah. It's comic. This podcast will self-destruct in 3 minutes.
Yeah, so before we close this thing off then, Paul, what are some of the more non-mainstream stuff that's on your radar these days? We talked about a bunch of stuff, but anything that you'd recommend or any favorites that you're following?
Well, like I said, I'm really looking forward to the Underwater Welder. I'll follow pretty much anything Gabriel Ba and Fabio Moon are doing.
Yeah.
Really love what their stuff. I've actually picked up a couple of things from them at TCAF this year, and I'm really enjoying that. Some of their earlier work. So that's some of what I'm reading. As I said, I mentioned Mind Management by Matt Kint. I tend to I guess I tend to be following creators more right now, and and so those are kind of the things that I'm getting. I still have Tale of Sand, Jim Henson's
How is
Tale of Sand.
that? I've been meaning to get that one. Yeah.
It's beautiful. Ramon Perez did. It's stunning.
Yeah,
It's something that it's not a casual read.
Okay.
You can go about it that way, but I think you miss a lot just looking at it as a casual read. It's something to chew on. There's a lot of stuff going on in there, and he's really done some awesome work.
Huh.
Yeah.
Anything else
That's
you guys
I
want?
haven't heard of that before.
No,
Actually.
you haven't?
I gotta check that out.
No,
No, I haven't.
Some Jim Henson script or something, right?
It's like a script that he and Jerry Jewell wrote in the late '60s, and
really?
then they got too busy with that whole Sesame Street thing, and
Yeah. Sidetracked. Yeah.
exactly.
Making millions of dollars. Just got too busy. Yeah. I guess is that put out under Marvel or what is that?
Archaea.
Who's that put out under?
Archaea.
Is it?
Yeah.
So it's like Disney owns the Muppets and or did they buy it and does it?
I think it's
No,
Henson.
Is that how?
Doesn't Henson Company?
Oh, it's not in. Is it
Yeah.
the Henson Company? Okay.
Or is that owned by Disney now though?
Hence, I'm not sure. They own the Muppets.
Did they buy the whole Henson thing or?
I'm not sure about that. I think that they have some in. There's my video. Never mind. Switch to Skype video now.
Switch to Skype. Go.
All of a sudden, I'm yellow. No, I think that they bought the Muppet trademarks.
Okay.
But not necessarily the Henson Production Company. I think they have a production company that does sell stuff to Disney.
Oh, okay.
But I think and I could be wrong, but I think that they operate independently from that. At any rate, this was theirs. Like this was kind of like family estate kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And and I'm not sure how Ramon got the gig. I'm really glad that he did because it's just stunning work.
So who's
But
it put out by then?
Archaea, yeah.
Oh, it's Archaea. Okay.
Yeah, and then again, I'm loving what Jeff Smith's doing with Razzle. I've been following that, and Terry Moore bought me with Strangers in Paradise like 12 years ago, and so I'll always read stuff that he's doing, and so I read Echo, and I'm just I keep looking over to the side because I got like a little stack of books over there.
Yeah.
And so that's where, and so it's like Tale of Sand is there, Neil Young's Greendale that I mentioned earlier, and I've got the full edition of Echo, one of the few sort of, because Echo delves into the superhero realm.
Yeah.
It's one of the few books I was able to get my wife to read, of that ilk, and.
Okay.
And she really enjoyed it. And so Rachel Rising, his current series is really good. I don't know.
What are they up to on Rachel Rising? I bought the first one of that, but
I switched to trade fairly quickly.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah, I found that it's one of those things where it just tends to be a more satisfying read that way. Again, it's that I think what Terry does in 20 odd pages is really great, but there's a pacing that he's working towards with some things.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Where it's just I'm gonna end up enjoying this more in trade, so why don't I just get it in the form in which I'm going to enjoy?
yeah. I bought the first one, and there wasn't too much to get you too hooked in the first one because it was very kind of drawn out. So I haven't.
It was over fast.
Yeah, I know. But I've been keeping an eye on it just because it looks neat. So see where he's going with it. But,
I was looking around for the comics that I got this week, but I have no idea where I put them.
What are you guys reading?
That's what I was trying to find. There's a neat. It looked like it was a European comic that was very cartoony style. No idea where that is now. Savage Dragon is one I always pick up.
Yeah.
That's the one that I keep buying religiously.
What's that up to now?
Oh, it's some huge number. They got to be almost 180, something like that.
Well,
that's awesome.
Here's 178. That was from a while ago. So there's got to be.
And he took a long while off while he was running the business, didn't he?
Yeah, there was a huge gap of time where he was the publisher of. Was that the title he had? Yeah, where he's only doing one or two comics a year, and then he kind of.
But he's slowed down now. I find because he's doing a few other projects.
Well, and also
now,
because he moved. He was in Oakland and he moved to San Francisco. So between all that stuff, that has slowed him down a little bit.
But he's also doing
Supreme
penciling for a couple other projects.
Yeah, the Supreme he's doing.
Supreme. And was it something else he was doing too?
Who knows?
Or he was writing. I don't know. Every time
he was doing that gold like some of the Golden Age characters.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Like the Golden Age Daredevil
project, I think they call it.
That's it. That's the yeah.
Oh, that but that's sporadic though, right?
Yeah, it's very sporadic. But he's still the one that's been spearheading that.
But I've seen him doing pencils on other things, like just he's a madman. He just keeps going. He's like Romita Jr., where it just kind of keeps. I don't know how they keep it up. They seem like they just kind of know exactly what to do, and they just put the lines down, and it's done.
Yeah.
They move on to the next panel. Keep going.
Yeah. And then everything else for me is just kind of random sampling of things. Like I bought a few of the IDW Ghostbusters just because I like the cartoony style, and then lots of things like just from getting stuff from friends. Like we were talking with Troy Little, and his stuff these days is just looking phenomenal. So I can't wait to see the new stuff he's doing with Angora Napkin. Like that one's pretty exciting.
Cool.
Yeah. I find I've been going back and getting comics that I haven't read from like I just not too long ago I just got like the Tyrants from Steve Bissette from way back in the
Nice.
So I've just been kind of getting that stuff, and reading some of the old, like filling gaps with like the old Amazing Spider-Man that I hadn't read.
Yeah.
Now that you can get the trades and stuff like that. And recently I went back and I bought all the first
Put it in
issue trades. Like
my shelf by my drawing board. It says Ernest and Rebecca. I don't know, that I just was captivated by the artwork on that one.
Yeah.
Robert Valley, he's another guy that just for the sheer artwork is phenomenal. He put out a new book, Massive Swerve 4. I haven't got that yet, but that's one I have to get.
Yeah, actually, I had where are they? Some old ones too that like I don't know how old they are, but like I don't know, Gus and his gang. Have you ever heard of that?
Oh wow.
Some awesome. It's your favorite. It's all cowboys and stuff like that, but some really nice, really nice artwork in there. So just I find I've just been finding stuff like that, like just odds and ends and different. The next thing on my list is really want to read the Lupin series.
Oh yeah.
I've never read those, but I mean, we keep watching the Castle of Cagliostro. That's the old Miyazaki one.
Yeah.
The movie, and the kids love it. And every time I watch it, I'm like, I really got to go check out those comics and
that's cool.
See it. So that's gonna be on my list of things. So yeah, kind of going back. I find if there's nothing that's really interesting me now, then I'll just go back. And I mean, that's a great thing about now. Everything's in print, so you can go back as far as you want, and you can find even to the point where it's like I bought I never read the actual first Incredible Hulk comics and stuff. So I got the trade paperback of all the very early stuff, and reading that, and like the first Fantastic Four ones, all these origin stories that you always kind of know of, but I've never actually read.
It's one of those things, right? I mean, that's the real history, I mean, they always say, you got to read that first pile of issues of Fantastic Four because everything Marvel has done was built on that.
Yeah. And it's funny because they're actually, I mean, I don't know if it's sacrilegious to say this, they're actually kind of bad. But
it's pretty hokey.
It's pretty well. It's very bad. But you can see the kind of nugget of what catches and what's so awesome about it as well. Like there's something in there that, I mean, it's very you said hokey. It's incredibly hokey, but there is that something in there that makes it awesome hokey rather than just kind of bad hokey.
There's a spark, because you're right. It starts out with some really cool action stuff, and then it's like, man, the dialogue was so, I mean, people make fun of Bob Haney, and it's like, how can you make fun of Bob Haney's dialogue and then go worshiping what Stan did? Like, come on. And it was funny how different. I mean, and without a doubt, the dialogue on that early Fantastic Four stuff is far worse than anything he did on Spider-Man. But even some of that,
the Spider-Man ones are actually. You know what, though? The Spider-Man ones are actually pretty darn entertaining and good. Like, I find the Spider-Man ones hold up a lot better than the Fantastic Four ones do, for sure.
And maybe that was just the fact, by benefit of it being a year or so later, right?
Probably. I haven't gotten to, like, I haven't gotten to that time period of Fantastic Four yet, I don't think. So, just read the first, 10 or whatever issue. So
that first Essentials, it's pretty funny, but it's like, but then when you get into like just idea wise, the stuff that they were throwing out there was crazy. I mean, that's
the great thing about it, is that it hadn't been done before. It's neat. And even like I read I haven't gotten too much into the Incredible Hulk one, but just that first issue of the Incredible Hulk, I'm like, that's same thing. It's kind of hokey and that, but I'm like, it's a cool origin story. There's actual there's something about it that's just really, really
well. That's
cool.
why I want more creators to create their own comic books. I love it when just people come up with new ideas. Like, I'm loving Paul Grist's The Mudman. That's one where it's so much fun. And who was it? Was it Steve Rude did The Moth? That was one where it's just this was a while ago he did it, but it was just one of those characters that's it's kind of like a Spider-Man or a Blue Beetle, or it's like you're doing this kind of insect hero guy, but it's a new costume and a new character, and there's something exciting about that rather than just rehashing all the old stuff. So I just love it when a creator will do that. Just give me something new. Or Ed Brubaker with Criminal. That's one of my favorite comics.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
so
I love
all those things.
The Archie one. What was the
Last
title
of
called?
the Innocents? Is that?
Last of the
Innocents. I think that was the title of it.
I don't know if you've read that, Paul, but
it's
that was great. I really enjoyed that. I haven't read too much of the other stuff. The other stuff I flipped through and it didn't catch me as much as that one did, but that was a really good series though.
Yeah,
I find with one of the things that you get this with like novels and anything, whereas that you want the original stuff, but the in order to get through all the to buy new original stuff, you're taking a chance because the bad stuff hasn't been weeded out over time. Whereas like for me to read novels, I'd much rather go read novels from 100 years ago. Because those are the ones that have held up, and they're
well. Speaking of novels, though, the thing I'm most obsessed with these days is Game of Thrones. Like this is like I blew my entire entertainment budget on all the big, thick hardcovers. Like I got the DVD set. I've just been on a Game of Thrones marathon.
I haven't seen any of it. My wife actually picked up. There was like a package deal on Kobo back in December, and she bought all of the books. Or no, she bought the first 4 because there was like a set. You could get a set of all 4. And so she was reading those over the holidays, and she finished them, and she's like, I have to read the next one.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And so she got that next one, and so she finished reading it, and then she's like, now I've got to wait for the next one to come out. And it's like, from what I understand, it could be a little while. So we had avoided watching the show. And I mean, generally for me, I'm not really as into the fantasy stuff, but everyone I've talked to has been like, no, you would totally enjoy this.
It's
and I
the most phenomenal thing I've ever experienced. It's kind of like the best tagline to say is it's like Lord of the Rings meets The Sopranos.
That's awesome. And
it was like watching CSI for the first time.
No.
I'm gonna be sick of it. No.
Well, actually, I started getting into it because Joe Rogan kept talking about it. Like for a while there, he kept saying, "Oh, I saw the next episode," and he was like completely going bonkers over it. So I thought, okay, let me check out one of these episodes and see what I think. And I watched it, and I was blown away. So I watched the next one. I was blown away. And next thing you know, I was watching an episode every single night. And I was just so, my mind had exploded from it that finally it's like I pulled Erica in on it. So I got my wife to watch it too. It's like, okay, I didn't know if she would like this because it's pretty intense, but the soap opera drama is so good and so much happens. It's like, okay, come watch this show. So now we're going through it all again, this time with her.
That's fantastic. Yeah, no, I mean that's it. It's and that is. I mean, you're right. I mean, I see people all the time with, where they got into the show and they're like, I have to read this because the show, they're like the season ended. So
So do the novels end on a cliffhanger, or like, if I start reading the novels now, am I gonna get to a point where get to the last one and go, I gotta wait?
Yeah, well, so the books are pretty big.
I'm a fast reader, Mike.
Look at the size of this one.
Yeah.
How many thousands of pages and
lots of pictures, though, right? In there, is there?
So
stills from the TV show.
Well, we should probably end this thing, guys. My camera stopped about 15 minutes ago, so I'm going to be back on Skype video.
We say that all the time. We're gonna go for another 25 minutes. Was that 25 minutes ago? We're like, we got to end this.
We are riding this Titanic into the iceberg.
That's right. I still got some left on mine. Let's keep going. Ride with me. I'm just gonna be on.
We'll just have to do this again. So, do you want to plug all your stuff, Paul?
All right, so main thing I'm going to plug is Legion of Substitute Podcasters. New episodes every Monday. That is legionofsubstitutepodcasters.com. I'll send you guys links to some of the other stuff because I mentioned the movies in which I've been killed and in which Scott has been the hero, and so I'll send you guys links to those. And but yeah, check out the podcast. Everything else is sort of on.
How about the Stupids? Are they making a comeback?
Yes.
I hear
Yes.
the Stupids are making a comeback.
Yes, there is much stupidity. Yeah, we've just been finding ourselves with the time to do that again, which has been nice. We kind of stopped it back when Bill had his first, and then it was like, oh, we'll start it again, and then he had his second, and it's like, oh no, now we're good, and then I had my first. So so we finally got to the point where our kids are old enough that we can actually get out and do some playing again, and it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, they're old enough, like 2 or 3, you can bring them to the bar with you, and
exactly.
You know,
my beer over, kid. Okay, so
there's actually good people at the bar. They're fine. Yeah,
exactly. They're
no,
nice.
People don't know the Stupids are Bill Kimberly and Paul French's band.
Yeah, so we do we have times where we do a full band thing, and other times where it's just the two of us with acoustic guitars doing songs which we have no rights to do. And there's more information actually over it. We do have a website for that, and that is thestupids.ca.
Okay. We have an MP3. We can use that for the outro music.
I'll see what I can do.
If not, just grab your guitar, start singing. We got 25 minutes.
And if not, we'll end it with a Von Crippen.
All right.
Okay, so once again, I'm Mike Kitchen.
I'm Blair Kitchen. And with us was Paul.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
We'll do this again for a second and third and fourth hour.
Yeah. All right, man. Thanks a lot, Paul.
All right, Kitchen Bros out.